I might have a long list.
School district.
It's so funny, like people always want to win the lottery, and do you know what my number one goal is?
All right, we will call the September 11th board meeting to call it to order. We'll raise for the Pledge of Allegiance, but we'll have like a moment of silence for the 23rd anniversary of September 11th. And so, yeah, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Seconds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and moving on to presentations, we have MP3 staff recognition. Yes, and that is with Michelle's side.
Michelle.
I didn't know I was gonna go so soon. Thank you. That's awesome. Right. I'm gonna guess if I click on here, will it head to the agenda? I like a clicker. I changed it. Awesome. I'm gonna ask you,
This is great.
do I need to sit to see the, like, is there video right now or not, or can I stand? Oh, good, I like standing. No, yeah, right, this feels way better, right?
That's the video.
Oh, perfect. We'll have a great show. Great. Well, my name is Michelle Seidel and I'm the principal at NP3 and I'm so excited today for our NP3 recognition. I have just a few of our SLPC team, that's our student learning plan certified teachers. NP3 is unique in the sense of that we operate on Mondays and Wednesdays, very similar to like a traditional school, as much as you could under that alternative learning umbrella. However, then on those other days, those Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, it is this behind the scenes magic that happens with our SLPC team. And so I have Janet and Glenda here. If you can come on up here, because I don't want to be alone. You know, I like support. But we actually have 6 SLPCs. And this is our team. We have Lainey Brannon, Sarah Karashige, Jack Carico, Glenda Elgersma, who's here tonight, Janet Geeson, who's here tonight, and Sarah Warnock. These teachers are amazing. They also wear other hats. Some of them are coaching tonight, shuffling their kids during their moonlighting job, of getting them to and from practices. And so not everyone was able to come, but I appreciate Janet and Glenda. This team's incredible. Just some interesting facts about MP3. This team has been working since day one of when school started, getting plans together. It's almost like you're writing an individual student learning plan for every single student in every single core content area in partnership with their family. So it's a lot of relationship building. They use our district approved curriculum, which is on our website. And then that's the thing that is pretty awesome is our SLPCs like Janet and Glenda, they meet with each family and they talk with them about their teaching and their child's learning style, because we know there's just not one fit curriculum that's going to work for them. And so they spend lots of time helping learn about that child and the parents and the family and helping them find curriculum. And then they come into our library, really great stewards of state funds, and they pull curriculum because we have a great system and we have a really good selection of curriculum. So they help pull that and then they order curriculum. And so you'll see that on the board docs when you see in purchase orders. Those are the workbooks. And so every student needs viable curriculum because it is a public school and we do receive funding from them. And so we want to make sure that they have access to district approved curriculum. And so again, like I said, they meet with each family and then they set up this weekly contact. And then they go through, oh, do you want to meet by Zoom, by phone, by email, like very accommodating. We're very customer service oriented and doing what's going to work for families. Typically now, would you guys say, what do you think is probably the most?
Zoom FaceTime.
Yeah, that has been incredible, especially after COVID. A lot of great things happened in that alternative learning world. where students can show you their work instead of trying to describe it or take pictures. And so it's more of that two-way.
Surprising what a relationship you get with students over Zoom every week. For sure.
And these are relationships with students that might live in Yakima, Spokane, Vancouver, Washington. People know about us and they reach out and they call and they said, my friend, they might be in a co-op and they heard about MP3. We serve pretty much everybody in Whatcom County and every school district. And then we do what's called monthly reviews. We are in the thick of it. We have to, with alternative learning, we have to provide accountability to the state because essentially they have their certified teaching certificate and then families are teaching and partnering with them. So it's essentially they're teaching underneath of their certification. So every month it's like they're putting their stamp of approval. And so each review has like your topics, activities, your learning, and the state standards for every single content. So we can tell if there's progress of learning or not. Generally speaking, there is. And every once in a while there might not be, but that's where we can scoop in and say, how can we help and support you and provide interventions and help families there? And in this awesome team, we meet every Tuesday morning. It's that idea of you want to have the same experience. It doesn't matter which classroom you're in or what SLPC you're in, you're going to get the same communication because we all collaborate and we write weekly communication to our families. And so everyone's getting the same information. And then same thing with assessment. We start next week with iReady, which is our district assessment. We'll be proctoring it with students all over the state of Washington as well as on campus. And so we have that dialed in. I don't know how long we've been all working together, but it's been a long time. So we can kind of almost read each other's eyes. Like, and let me just say, we've been drinking from a fire hydrant, but we know it. And we're like, we can laugh and we're like, this is crazy. Like we're working crazy hours, but we're like, okay, as soon as we get through this month, it's going to be better, right? We're going to have everything done. And it is, we know what's ahead. And then we'll offer a parent workshop and that'll start in October 1st, where families can come in and get support because we have all these new families coming too. And it's a lot too for them. They're like, okay, taking on this role as not just the parent, but I'm also providing instruction at home. And this is where our SLPC crew swoops in and they build these relationships, but they also just help, they help families and students know, like, we have access, we have resources. I'm actually looking at our students here, our board members, and they both have experienced MP3. And so I'd love to know too what your guys' thoughts were about MP3 and your experience.
Okay, well, I kind of started at a weird time. So my 6th grade year was when COVID hit, and then I transitioned to MP3 when like everyone was home. So it's a little bit different for me. But while I was there, I felt very supported, but I also felt like very free. And when I came back to public school, I did notice like a change, and like it was definitely very beneficial.
And you were able to like take classes that met your needs, like you could take math at much
Yeah.
higher level.
And then just walk to MP3.
Yeah, it worked, it worked. And I remember Kennedy, you had such a great experience, I think,
Yeah,
too.
I did it, I like after my 5th grade year, I think I was like kind of in the same boat as Logan, just like wanting to be more challenged. And I think that 5th to 6th grade, that transition was a good time to just be able to like try it out and then be able to still go to middle school. So I really liked it.
It is, that's one of the benefits too, is that you have access to curriculum. Just because you might be in 5th grade or 6th grade, you don't have to just do that curriculum. You can extend and you can tap into 7th and 8th grade and high school level. And so that's really awesome. And then just some fun facts about MP3. We just approved 208 student learning plans, which accounted for just over 1,000 individual classes. That's a lot of classes that have to get approved in a short amount of time. There's all of them. We have to meet deadlines for the state. Everything is timestamped. So it can't be one of those things where, oh, we didn't get to that lesson today. We'll just move it into next week and we'll come back to it. Everything is date and time stamped and we have to meet those deadlines. And we have a stellar SLPC team that is incredible and so amazing at meeting those deadlines. And I can't think because it can get stressful when you're like, and it's in that partnership too. And so it's kind of like if you're waiting on families to respond back to you. And so they do an amazing job.
Michelle, can I interrupt you just?
yes,
a second?
anytime.
Can you remind us how many students you have?
Mhm.
And how many teachers you have?
Oh, yeah, so we have 208 students. We technically have like head count, if you talk head count, we have 11 certified teachers. It takes 4.4 FTE teachers to run our Monday, Wednesday campus and to serve 150 students. Incredible, right? And then SLPCs, it's only 2.9 when you think it, because they wear two different hats. And those, that just under 3 FTE serves 208. It is crazy.
Yeah.
We have a really great model. We're able, it's almost like a business with a heart, is that you are still able to serve lots of students, but also make sure you meet each individual need. I mean, I know Kennedy, I know Logan, I know what classes they took and what grade you guys in, junior and senior, like, you know, your students. And that was when they were in 5th grade. You make that connection. I think our staff does an amazing job at knowing students. If you come onto campus, they get greeted when they get dropped off. And they walk through the courtyard, they get greeted again at the gate, and you have 11 teachers greeting them. I mean, it's pretty magical. It feels good. Yeah.
So can you confirm, because I've heard from other families, is there a wait list to get into the program?
Not to get into our program, because I mean, MP3 is ALE, right? And so it's really based on your student learning plan. So that is what guides your learning. MP3 campus is like, that's great to have and it's supplemental, but we're putting a lot of kids in the classroom right now because we want to get them in on campus. I mean, we have 21st graders in a tiny little portable.
Right.
Our teachers are amazing. I mean, they're set up for 16 capacity. And so and first graders are a little body, so it kind of helps. And so we're kind of squeezing them in because it is hard to when a family's dropping off 2 kids and they have another kid that's on a wait list. And so last week, Thursday, Friday, we all will collaborate together and be like, all right, this is the situation. We have this many in first grade. How do we get them in?
So campus learning does have.
It does, but we work magic and we make it work somehow. Some families are on that wait list and they're like, you know what, they are offered a spot in a class, but they're like, you know what, I think we're gonna wait till second semester. And we're okay with that. We wanna do what meets their needs. And some families now will start making adjustments to, like, if they're driving from Skagit, they're like, you know what, we might need to drop first period and come second period. And that's okay too. Like, we're very accommodating people. Yeah.
So can students who are currently enrolled at the high school and are not finding what they need from the curriculum there, are they able to tap into MP3 and do learning that way to make up those credits that needed?
No,
you
not
can't
in
cross.
P3. Well, because we're only K8, so
that's
we're not
right.
accredited.
Yeah.
For that, we're not.
Okay.
I mean, if they needed something that was like intervention, I know in the past, like when Lainey taught high school, special ed, she'd come to MP3 and get resources to use, and that's really nice to have. But I think our district has so many options now with like opening doors and other programs that I think students are able to access that.
So the K through 8 could not participate in both Meridian and campus?
Oh, like if you were going to the traditional school and one, you know what, it doesn't work with our schedules.
Okay.
Sometimes the student will be like, hey, we want to access music at Irene Ryther, and we will do a shared FTE.
Okay.
But I think those classes are only like, maybe like 30 minutes. They're 45, so it's pretty small, and then I think once they realize it doesn't last too long, I mean, they have that option, but then it's driving them there for 45 minutes, and it might be on a Tuesday, or it could be on a campus day, then it's like, well, do you want to miss out on your writing class on campus, or do you want to go for music? So the schedules don't always work. It does work a little bit better sometimes with middle school if they want to do band.
Okay.
That can
So it's
sometimes
more
work if they come
MP3
early.
students coming to the traditional classroom rather than.
Than the other way, because then they would be missing classes on. They'd have.
Okay.
It does work though sometimes, like if they're extension and then they want to cut, because they have a much more open schedule. And then we have, oh goodness, we serve students in 26 districts in the state of Washington, which is pretty incredible. So, and we have great relationships with all of our districts like Moses Lake, a lot of students in Yakima, Vancouver, Ellensburg. And so a lot of times during state testing, then we do what's called interdistrict agreements. And we have a great relationship with them where we can make partnerships with them and they'll test our students for the state assessment in their district. So that works really good. And so we partner with those 26 districts and it's been great. And then we have 58 course codes. We have a lot of course codes for a K-8 building. But it's important to have, and we've been welcoming 46 new students into MP3. So it does have a pretty high mobility rate. Our numbers might not always change too much, but the mobility is, and that's okay. That's the nature of alternative learning. Sometimes families are like, it's great for one child, not the other in their family. Sometimes it's just this year they need. Maybe it's, some of them it's K-8, they're on that pathway. And so we're just happy to accommodate them. So very excited about that. And then we have a special thank you. Glenda Elgersma. I reached out to all of our staff and asking for, hey, is there somebody that you'd like to recognize? And I had multiple people that submitted responses for Glenda, and we thank you so much. Glenda has a heart of gold. She always is going over and beyond. Here's a comment from one of our teachers, and it says, Glenda has taken the lead on so many projects. One of the areas that had a dramatic positive impact on student learning and student engagement is her work with reading fluency. She regularly meets with students one-on-one during her planning time to assess students with their reading fluency. She then provides consistent, empowering communication with parents, so they have the resources and the action steps to support their students with reading fluency. And this work has had a huge impact on student achievement. So Glenda, we thank you so much. I have these beautiful flowers, which one of our teachers, Rebecca Montgomery, made for her,
Beautiful.
which is pretty.
Oh.
And that's it. We talk about our strategic plan and our commitments as a district. Well, Glenda shares those same commitments. When we talk about belonging, she is so welcoming to students. I watch her every day. If it's a fist bump, a high five, a hug, she greets them by their name. She knows them. And she's a person that is, you know, when you ask students, do you have somebody at school that you feel safe with? Glenda. It's amazing. Her communication, she engages with students and families so that they're involved in school. We talked about going over and beyond. Glenda last year had Readers Theater and she invited families in, and that was a huge impact. Families that get to be on campus and watch their students in Readers Theater. It's amazing, and thank you so much, Glenda. And parents, they feel welcome at school. It's part of our commitments, and I appreciate that. And then support. She works in partnership with families to meet the needs of each learner. She's also known for delivering curriculum to their doorstep. And then wellness, she does create an environment where students, they feel safe. She makes sure that they understand when we do safety drills. She explains that. She wants them, she thinks ahead. She just understands that sense of feeling safe and well-being, and it's noticed. And then learning, we talked about the early literacy interventions. She has a passion to support students and make them readers, and they want to read, and they are showing growth in that. And so thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think you're gonna talk. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. Absolutely. I do have a box for you to put your. Oh, wonderful. Oops, sorry.
Thank you to all of you for what you do every day.
Yes, do you have questions?
I have one question. When is the open house this year?
I'm so sorry. I didn't invite you guys.
Was it last
Did
week?
you have it?
I had it. Do you want me to have another one? It's October 4th. I mean, September 4th.
Oh,
Don't worry. We'll have another event.
We
We'll get you to it.
went last year,
Thank you
2 years.
for
You have like an open house or?
Oh, you'll have to come for share. It'll be in
Schaefer, that's what it was.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well,
That's
yeah,
a good
it's
one.
share
I
fair.
have a-
But we can do another open house. It's
No,
fun.
it's-
People love the open houses.
That Schaefer was fun.
We'll do
Yeah,
share.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yes.
A lot of parents are, yeah, just and seeing, since it was further into the school year, there was a lot of content for us to review and tell
Yeah.
stories about. So
And
that was
lots of
great.
family interaction,
Mhm.
a lot of excitement. So thank
Magical
you.
place.
Thank
It
you
is a
for
magical
looking at it.
place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michelle, I'd like to really like,
Thank
thank you for your leadership, you know, here in the
Thank
district.
you.
You've been here for a long time.
Yeah, 21 years.
You've done. And done such an effective job at it, you know. And like I said, I've learned over the years that subconsciously people like to be led, and you're a great leader. And I do know, firsthand, I get the firsthand feedback on it, but I do know that, back, a few years back, when our special ed department, quite frankly, was tanking and we had poor leadership. And some of the passion that was in that special ed group, speaking for Lainey, when she came to MP3, under your leadership, she had her passion back, her motivation, her willingness to want to be there. I joke now because it's like school season. Well, I got the TV till 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm gonna call her. I'm gonna eat, I can do something, but she shares with me about how high the morale is of the district at the MP3 camp, how much people want to be part of it, how much the kids want to be part of it. And when I was there the one day watching, the kids get off the bus and then actually get on the bus, it's like a well-oiled machine. I mean, I can't say enough about how great, it is and the campus and the team that you have, continue. And we've lost some people. I mean, Shelley Phillips left. I was like,
I
oh,
know.
man, but.
But she still comes back for lunch
Yeah.
every once in a while, so we haven't quite lost her.
But what's so cool about the district, and I shared with James too, with you and Tyler and Iron, right there, Todd here, and now we got Sean, all 4 pistons are firing, so I think at the 13 years I've been involved with this, the leadership's never been better, and you're a big part of it, so I appreciate the work that you do.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate.
You are the high school. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of awesome too. I think I've had both of your favorites kids, and so it's
Right.
fun to see that.
And the toaster finally had to be replaced.
And finally, Maddie was in kindergarten and brought me a toaster off my wedding, and when I was in the study of my wedding. And I finally had to get a new toaster. They're doing good though. That's 19 years. That's awesome, but thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, next item of business is the TOSA Ed Tech presentation. And Adrian Samara, Joe O'Brien, Cynthia Richards, and Rebecca Kratzik will be presenting. Richards. It says Richards, I'm sorry. Richards.
I'm gonna introduce them quickly, talk a little bit, and then let them explain sort of what their work is. So we have teachers on special assignment for educational technology integration, and Cynthia's in her 4th year in this position. So this is part of when we had our first tech levy, part of what, and Joe will talk a little bit about kind of how the funding of that went, but that was something that team realized is that we needed support with professional development and all of that. And so as we've continued in that, saw a need to add in Rebecca to support. So we'll be talking, they'll be showing a little bit more about what they did. But one thing I wanted to just make clear is that sometimes when people think about technology TOSAs, they think, okay, that's the person who's running around helping me unjam my printer or things. And our intent with this position was very much about them being focused on instruction. So you're gonna see them there talking, it's not, they absolutely help us and help teachers to like use their technology well, but their focus is on using it for teaching well, not just on same technology. So that's a big part of what they're gonna do. So Cynthia and Rebecca, and I'm gonna give it to them. They prepared just a piece like just to share some examples of what their work looks like.
So I'm Cynthia. This is my 10th year in the district. I actually was here at the middle school. And then took on this role. So I serve our secondary teachers and students and their families as well with that. And then for MP3, I work with Lainey for robotics and I work with Rebecca for the tech. So we kind of share responsibilities with MP3 as well. Before I move to the next slide, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. I mostly work at IRE and I also support MP3 teachers as well. This is my 2nd year doing this, and then previous to that, I taught 5th grade here at IRE.
Your man's teacher, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that group.
Yeah.
So we have some just kind of basic examples of support, and when I say basic, I mean there's a lot to what we do. We have a lot of teachers and a lot of kids that we support on a daily basis, as well as administrators. So first and foremost, we really support the idea of healthy digital habits and teaching that digital citizenship. So over the last few years, we've come up with our district-wide tech handbook of what our expectations are around technology. Has resources for parents. It talks about our mission and vision. We talk a lot about online footprint and online security and privacy. So there are some district-wide alignment pieces that we're doing. So if your kid is in kindergarten or in their senior year, we are talking to them about how they are using their technology for good, and integrating it well into their lives. And so it won't consume them, but that they can be critical consumers and then also good contributors. We also work really heavily with promoting equitable student access to curriculum materials and grade level learning. And that looks really different between our scopes of who we serve. Me at secondary, there's, more online curriculum where the students are doing their work online or through online platforms, or they're conducting research. And at the elementary, it looks very different as well, as how they are integrating those platforms. We help teachers engage in classroom activities and assessment that use technology. Again, that looks different, but there are some district-wide things that we have been working on. So formative is one of our assessment programs. We've been using it pretty heavily at the middle and high school, and we're bringing it down to what grade level? Second grade. So we're using that to progress monitor, and you can tie things to standards within that program, so we can look at standards alignment. We have created teams within that program so that we can look at like first grade team, social studies at the middle school team, and we can look for common formative assessments and see, where are gaps and what are trends. We encourage collaborative tools, and then we also all support iReady and pathways of assessment, pulling all the data, helping teachers analyze their data, look for trends, think about intervention. How does that intervention even work? There's a whole host of things that go into all of those buckets. What am I missing in that?
You're great. I'm gonna highlight a couple things on here for you all that will have connections to other things that we've been talking to the board about, around the student access in particular. We've talked a lot about like universal design and how we're trying to help support all of our students to be able to engage with our curriculum, whether they speak another language or have special needs. And that is a huge part of the work, is how the technology can help kids with that. And there's been a lot of work that these folks have done with teachers and helping our special education teachers know how to teach the kids how to use the tools, support there. And then the data support, all of those PLC teams that come and share their data with you, these guys are instrumental in helping those teams learn how to look at that data, manage that data, all of that. So those things that you're seeing people come and share, they are supporting on the backside, behind the scenes.
I did have a question about that. Like, I understand all the bullet points, but like, what does your day look like? Who is your customer? Like, are you in a classroom helping a student or a teacher, or are you behind the scenes looking at data analytics all day?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
All of the above. I think we're gonna get into like some specific examples,
Okay,
but
perfect.
yes, it is a lot of like, it could be working with a kid, like they don't know how to use an accessibility feature like Google Read and Write, and I might sit down with the child and like, let's work on this together.
Okay.
Or it might look like, I'm gonna teach the first grade team how to do that, so then they can teach their students how to do that depending on need.
Okay.
But yeah, both.
Or sometimes like my day this morning, going to a student of concern meeting and data keeping and looking up a child's entire assessment history or their academic history, or what do we know about this child? Oh, they're coming from another place. What information do we have? So that we can support them in the here and now in our district, in our hands. Or this afternoon it was digitizing some of our forums for our special education team, and trying to kind of bring us into more modern tools for how we communicate with parents and record that essential data so that they can do their job. So it can look, there is no one way it can look. It is.
Wear one hat.
Yeah, and we both also wear other hats besides technology as well. So this is just our main job. We each do different things in our buildings or across the district as well.
When you think about emerging technologies and then the application of that, and then the ability to be flexible to address the need as it arises. There's a lot of nuance in what they do and their day changes, even what they planned for, they change.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Yeah,
you know.
Good question.
Because that,
Yeah,
I get that,
Question when they started.
but what does that look like applied?
Look
What
at
does that
that.
look like applied, yeah.
I mean, my
So thank
son
you.
told his bus driver this morning when asked, what does your mom do in the district? Michelle Appellis told me that he told the bus driver, my mom teaches teachers how to be teachers. So, I mean, that's a kid's understanding of like what we do. But yeah, I mean, we just, wherever there is a need, in instruction and technology, we are there to fill that.
The other thing I'll throw out is it's different than 20 years ago. Teaching with instruction, excuse me, teaching with technology it's a different.
That's what I was wondering, what are your backgrounds? Did you go for any kind of IET or technical background? No.
No, I feel really lucky. When I first started teaching, I was in the Lake Washington School District. And my second year of teaching there, we went 1-to-1, and that was 13 years ago. Yeah, it's my 14th year. So, 13 years ago, we went 1-to-1 in that district. And so like I had the opportunity to learn a lot about technology. And then when I came here for Joe, I was often bugging him about technology. And asking lots of questions. So I think it's been a passion, but not the IT world, but the how can I use it to better serve my kids. It's great. I don't know your story.
Just fell in my lap.
That happens too.
Yeah.
I think you have definitely more of a passion and interest in using things well with
Yeah,
instruction.
Yeah.
And I think too, the other thing that I would say is that both of these folks were identified by their leaders or whatever, not only as people who know how to use technology, but people who are excellent classroom teachers. So they'll brush, but I think that it's really important to notice as well that they have both those sides.
So you should have a handout
It's in their, in your.
It's on our-
board.
in your brain.
Yeah.
So last year, we sat down as a team. So we meet, the four of us, every week to walk through the needs of all of our buildings and how to accomplish those needs. And we identified early last year a need for kind of a mission and vision of educational technology. What is it that we strive for? What is it that we are hoping for? How does that align with our strategic commitments? And so we started the process, and it does have draft on it. This is a living document. It is not currently published in the sense of like a nice, final, beautiful document, but it is a living document, something that we're continuing to work on. And so we created, using all the frameworks that our teachers are familiar with. So self-ID, right, that's our evaluation framework, UDL, which we've been working so heavily on in this district. And then also our technology standards, and these are the international technology standards, not that Washington State doesn't have them, but ISTE really sets the bar for technology standards. So we took all of those and then aligned them to each of those core commitments. And then we further broke them down into what does that look like as a core competency for staff, for students, and for leaders as well. And we did that for each of them, and you can peruse that document at will. You wanna?
Yeah, I think it was just like, the question of like, what's the purpose of using technology? Like, why do we want students to have access to technology? Why? And this was an attempt to like answer that question of why. Well, if we want them to be able to belong, here's some things. If we want them to do all these different things, this was sort of that answer to that question, hopefully, but.
In the last page of the document, we tried to list out by commitment, all the different programs that we are using within each of our buildings to try and accomplish that goal. And it is by no means an exhaustive list because technology is very fluid and things change, and we go through the approval process every week of new things that are coming in, so that's there also. Questions about that? Okay, I'll pass this off to you. Don't be clicking me off. So we each did some highlighted examples, so things that we think are like big successes. One thing that I think has been really fun with teachers is I've been teaching them over the last few years of how to make escape rooms through Google Forms. So the example that's pictured with like the university look is for ninth grade biology. One of our newer teachers was like, I'm done making the standard study guide. What can I do to engage these kids who do not want to engage? It is May. How? So I helped her make a breakout room activity that she and the other ninth grade biology teacher also used. And they saw really good scores on that test, which is great. Using AI to leverage modifications, accommodations, translations. AI is an amazing tool, and I know that we have not yet set kind of policy around that, and that is work of this year. But encouraging staff to use AI for the betterment of their kids and seeing really awesome, amazing things coming from that. And then also creating documents for streamlining data collection. So I've been working with our special education teams and our counselors to create documents that are living, that help them track IEP minutes, help them track students of concern. So the picture is an example of a student of concern form for the middle school.
Great. So at IRE this year, we adopted a new math curriculum, which has been a long time coming, and there's a lot of excitement around teaching math right now, which has not been the case in the past. And so we have a great need in our school to intervene and catch kids up who are behind in math. So one part of our jobs is helping teachers give assessments that they can then get actionable data. So we want to be able to quickly move on data. So when we see that a student has a need, how can I quickly capture that need and then respond to it immediately so that we don't waste time? So put tight circles of feedback. So one way that we're doing that is using the program formative I mentioned earlier. The curriculum came with these like about weekly quizzes that are like 6 to 8 questions. So we put them into this program called formative. Basically, it's an online quiz program where the kids can take the quiz and then the teacher gets instant how they did. It grades it automatically. And it's put it basically in a spreadsheet by student and then the problem number. So I can look at my data and go, 20% of kids got question 1 right. There's a problem here. Like what am I gonna do tomorrow to fix that? Or only 3 kids got this. How am I gonna pull a small group tomorrow? What am I gonna do like right now? Or maybe me and my partner teacher are gonna trade some kids. All my kids are really good on this part. Their kids didn't do so well. Tomorrow, let's do a quick swap so that we can respond to this data. So looking at lots of different ways to intervene and just using that as a way to capture data quickly. It also, our ML specialist, Tuan, is amazing. Is reading out loud all of the questions and all of the answer choices. So it's a human voice. The kids can play it. They can listen to it as many times as they want. Oftentimes with kids needs it read aloud, it means teachers like going by reading out loud to you and reading out loud to you and reading out loud to you. And it's like, what? But they can listen to it on their own. They can play it 20 times if they want to. They can translate it into home language if they want to. Lots of different ways to access it. And then the other thing that's really special about it is that when kids take SBA in the spring, there's always this like, do they not know the question or do they not know how to do it on the computer? And like, what's the like disconnect between that? So allowing them to use this all year long, then when they take SBA in the spring, it's not going to be like, I've never taken a quiz on a computer before, and I know the types of questions and how to use it. So that's one thing we're excited about. That's it.
So real quick, my comment,
Yes.
I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic for instant reaction to the situation. But what I noticed the most is both of you and the excitement you have for what you're doing. It's very apparent in what you just shared with us, and I love that because that gets me excited about things we're providing to our students. Because I'm not gonna lie, people have asked me like, what does this look like? I don't know, but now I know. Now I can say something.
And it's exciting.
It's exciting.
I love my job.
That's awesome. That's awesome. As an employer, you want to hear that. Like, I want to hear people say, "Oh, my job." So, no, but your excitement is infectious, and I hope the teachers, and I know the teachers and students are probably feeling that too, so. Thank you. And it's getting the tools to the children so that they can learn, and that's awesome.
I paid the bill.
Thank you for your contribution.
And I will, you know, and to your point, we can buy as much stuff as we want.
Yeah.
And we can hand it out to teachers, and we're gonna
Right.
have some rock stars, and we're gonna have some people that just don't have comfort. I mean, they are amazing in making what we've bought useful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's not, and again, it's not the tech, they're not supporting technology, they're supporting instruction. That's the huge piece there.
Absolutely.
The only thing I'll say on that is, so we meet every week, the four of us. What I like is over the last, year or so, I understand our conversations less, because they're starting to go off into education. Which I think is awesome. Like, I don't, those parts, they've gone beyond what my scope is, and that's where we need to be.
And some,
And I didn't tell them I was gonna do this, but I asked all the administrators to share some thoughts,
Oh.
and so you have them as well, but I wanted to share just two of them, so. Rebecca combines solution-focused tech savvy with her experience as a distinguished classroom teacher to empower students, staff, and families in IRE. She models and coaches high-level equitable practices and builds trusting relationships. Excellent rapport. And Cynthia's impact at the high school is felt in so many ways. She's willing to take on any task that help students or help staff to help students. She takes on every challenge with great attitude, sticks with the problem until it gets figured out. She is so reliable and effective, upbeat, and positive, and absolute pleasure to work with. So grateful.
that's awesome.
Great. Those are just one of the many. Any other questions?
I would say it's great, like your feedback there, if the kid doesn't learn something, you can turn around like that next day and teach it, as opposed to like waiting a few weeks and taking a test and be like, oh, we didn't get that, and going back. That to me is the coolest thing about it, so that's great.
Or when you take an assessment and then you don't find out till you return, the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
school year, it's like,
And they've moved on, yeah.
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 And then the data gets stale, because if you wait even a week, kids have learned since then, so now
Yeah.
your data's old and you didn't act on it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the PLC process that
Exactly.
reiterate
Mhm.
that they keep going through. So it's gonna, a little bit of context. Before we had the technology plan, the whole idea was to have Tectoses be able to prepare the staff before we put computers in hands. When COVID happened, and we had to get computers in people's hands, and so we kind of did it, well, we didn't we did it backwards because of the circumstance, but then in a lot of systems where the technology's there, but there isn't the support. So, Joe's right, there will support pieces of support around learning with technology, not just the technology.
well, it can do, like what you were saying with, they can hear it in their own language. They can hear it multiple times. I'm one of those people that needs to hear things a couple times before it sinks in. Or at least that's what the feedback I'm receiving. So I just think that's awesome for students who, because for so long, the structure has been, everyone fits in the round hole, right? And we're finding ways around that now. So that's just, how common is this in school districts to have this kind of support?
Hit and miss.
Okay.
I mean, it's priorities, right? So it depends on where they put their funding.
I like it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? We do not, okay. Moving on to reports, and Kurt Harville will be presenting. Annual staffing report, sorry.
Good evening.
Oh.
Sorry. All right, I get to talk to you about staffing, and each year I kind of do a rundown of the buildings and what they do. So I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna share a little bit more about what the principals and directors are also doing to hire the people that you just heard from. And so first of all, hiring, it's the most important thing one of the most important things is that we do. And to watch our directors and principals sit in the interview. And then what they do, our process is they screen, they have an interview. And then from that interview, they recommend a candidate to come to a second interview with myself. And then we have a conversation after that second interview with the principal and the director. And then we get back to the applicants. And the second interview looks a variety of ways. Over the past 2 years, that initial interview is looking a variety of ways. But I think the effort that they put in is what gets us the people who are in our buildings that you've heard from tonight. So hire the most qualified. And qualified is who has the skills for the job. Qualified is also who's got the passion for students, who fits best with the building. So there's a variety of qualifications that are looked at. With our school district, all of our staffing is enrollment driven and student need driven. And so our hiring process starts. Last year it started in December, or our budgeting process started in December. Daniel produces next year's enrollment, and then we base our staffing model on that. And then that guides our hiring for the spring and into the next school year. And then once we enter the school year, like today, we had a meeting with Daniel and James and Adrian and Aaron about how do we fill needs. And we have the school year started. Now we are recognizing we have some needs of our students that we may not have the staffing for right now. And so how do we creatively meet those needs? The last thing on our hiring piece is flexibility. And this is an example of kind of what you heard from Rebecca and Cynthia. They were originally hired. Cynthia was a middle school teacher. And Rebecca was a fifth grade teacher. And now based on the growth of our district and the creation of these tech posted positions, we posted them, but some of those were tapped from inside as to, hey, you should think about this. And when we have those situations, we want, as a district, we want people where their passion is. And so we encourage them, yes, absolutely, apply, you'll go through the process. And then one thing we do is to make sure that they feel comfortable there, we'll let them take a 1-year leave of absence. So that they can, if they get into that position and it's not the best fit for them, they have a place to come back to our district too. So they have a place to land. This flexibility we've seen a student monitor through this process work up to be a director. We have principals now who are administrators who a couple of years ago were teaching in the classroom. And so I think this flexibility makes our system better. It allows our staff to kind of take chances and get out there on a limb and follow their passion. Some of the other flexibility in hiring and attracting support staff are emergency substitute certificates. So we've had a sub shortage and we've had to find creative ways to get subs in the building to support our staff. And so we've started to do emergency sub certs, and we've created a process so that we can bring them in, and I'm trying to think if we've gained a teacher through that. I don't think we have yet. But it's increased our substitutes within the district. Okay. One of the things that I talked earlier about the passion that our principals and directors are showing, when we adopted our strategic plan, we wanted that strategic plan to impact everything that we do, every decision. And so our principals have created interview questions that are now aligned to our commitments, either directly or they're in a subcategory. So we have questions on belonging. We have questions in the interview process on support. During the second interview, I asked them most of them are familiar with the commitments, but I asked them, what are you most excited about if you are selected? And what as a district do you perceive as a challenge? What may be a challenge in pulling this off? The interview process, Tyler started this, and I've enjoyed Tyler's since he's been at IRE, because he's bringing an outside perspective in. And so he's challenging some of the things we do. But he asked, hey, can I have teachers teach a lesson plan? How do we incorporate this into our interview process? And so we listened, and he devised a system where he has the staff member, they teach a 15-minute lesson in a grade band that they're gonna teach in. And then they debrief that, and then with students. And then, yeah, they're in Mr. Rensing's PE class. Mr. Rensing steps aside and this applicant teaches a lesson to these students. And you see so much when they're with students, and students see so much. And then with IRE, they go through that mock lesson, and then they do a debrief of that mock lesson. And then they go into a more of a standard interview process. And so through that process, his interview team has a really good idea of who they want to select and who they want to recommend for a second interview. That is working well enough that we're trying to figure out how to work that out in a middle and high school schedule, which has some different challenges because the periods are shorter. And so we're working through that. Our high school has Robert and Sean use Zoom screening when they interviewed, because I think they had 9 applicants for a pool. And so they screened as they normally would, but then they called in 7 of them and did a 10-minute Zoom meeting with them. Asked them the same questions, and then from that Zoom meeting, they then brought in 3 or 4 for actual interviews. And then we did that. So one of the things as we debrief, there's always the talk of how would students perceive them? How is their instructional strength? But I'm starting to see where they fit in with, I'm starting to hear more comments about where do they fit in with belonging? What kind of relationships are they going to be? What kind of presence are they going to have? And now how are they going to fit in with the culture that we're creating in our building? And so with this, there was a comment made about the leadership in our buildings earlier. And we're starting to see that leadership now hire different staff. And so that's been fun to watch. And through this, we have seen things from applicants that have either elevated them. At the same time, they look really good on paper, and we've seen things in those mock lessons that have question. And so it's really allowed the principals to enhance their buildings.
Hunter shared with me some of his hiring concepts. And I was quite impressed.
Mhm.
And I'm actually taking ideas from him, and I'm using those same techniques and questions and answers in the hiring process I do now at the city.
Mhm.
And I found it, just like you said, to be even very effective, because some look great on paper.
Yeah.
Until you actually get to meet them and talk with them, and then kind of question them like, okay, who did your resume? But he gave me some really good ideas. He told me one of the biggest ones that he appreciated too, and he shared with me, he said one of the things like a question might be, why Meridian and why now?
Mhm.
Share that with me. What, want to hear. And he says a lot of times with that first question, it's like, I kind of know they're going this way or this way. So, yeah, he's got a skill.
He does.
So I'm I have to say, I'm kind of surprised that we don't have working interviews. 'Cause my daughter's a teacher
Mhm.
at another district,
Mhm.
and she absolutely had to do that.
Yeah.
She had to create the lesson plan actually, and then deliver it. So do we have a timeline on when we're going to look at implementing something like that? Because she's at a middle school.
Is she at a middle school?
Mhm.
Then I would, I'd like to talk to her.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then you had mentioned that there's interview teams.
Mhm.
Is there a time for when you're serving on that team if you've been selected? So that we kind of,
It's not a ongoing team.
okay,
It is for each, applicant or each position. Yeah. So the interview team is fluid.
good, perfect.
As part of the hiring process, I mentioned this briefly, but from last spring, Daniel talked to you about our budget, and so we're in this situation. So anytime we have a vacancy, we are reviewing that vacancy as from the budget standpoint of do we need to fill it? If we don't fill it, can we fill it from within? And then going through that process, and then we will get to the, okay, we need to post. So every position is going through a process, budgeted or unbudgeted. This year's hiring process began in January of 2024, and that was with the high school principal vacancy. Since that time, we have posted 39 jobs from January to probably last week. Compare that to 2 years ago where we posted 92 jobs. And it probably wasn't from January, it's probably from April to now. So a couple things. One, we retained a lot more staff, which is positive. And then we're in the situation we're in, so. With those 39 job postings, we've hired over 43 staff. And then as of the submittal of this report, we had 12 unfilled positions. And those were coaches, advisors, the teaching staff is in place. The paraeducators are in place, except for what were approved recently for budget adds.
Okay, so of these 12 open positions, how many are budget adds? And how many are
I
unfilled?
think these were of the unfilled. On the
No.
budget.
Already budgeted.
They were already budgeted,
Yeah.
all 12, okay.
Yeah. But they were going through the same process that other positions are going through, so. Okay. Total staffing of the district is broken down into three main groups. The largest is MEA. These are our teachers. These are our TOSAs, our counselors, our psychologists, nurses, and therapists. And they have about 130 members. And these are also broken down. These two are the seat collective bargaining agreements. And so MEA is on the second year of a third year of a 3-year bargaining agreement. And so we will bargain with MEA in the spring of 24, 25, 25, 26, I believe. Meridian Educational Support Professionals, MESP. There's 115 of these members. And these are paraprofessionals, secretaries, librarians, monitors, custodians. These are our classified positions. They just ratified their new CBA in June. And so this is the first of 2 years. So at the same time we will bargain with MEA, we will also re-bargain with MESP. And then our exempt and non-represented, these are our superintendent, myself, our directors, and building admin. And there's 26 of us. What is not listed here is our coaches. But these make up the total district.
What is the total staff?
The total staff, I'm gonna say is around 450. 450, yeah. Don't quote me on that, but it's around 450. Then those include coaches and offsite coaches as well.
So if you're a teacher and a coach, does that count as 2 or 1?
Probably position wise, it counts as 2.
Okay.
Last year, when we talked to the board about the budget, we talked about the need to transfer some staff to fill some of the vacancies. And so, as you remember, we transferred 3 teachers from into different buildings and 2 counselors. Meridian Edge from MESP, we transferred two paraeducators from the high school to Irene and 2 librarians from the middle school. They swapped middle school and IRE. And then exempt, we have 2 new directors who took on roles, 2 directors who took on additional roles, and then 2 principals were bumped from one from the middle school to the high school, and 1 teacher from Irene to middle school. One of the things that I've done this year, and I have 3 left to do, but it's just a simple check-in. That is having that transfer and being transferred against your will is a tough thing to adapt to. And what I've been so impressed with is how well they've handled that.
So you had mentioned earlier that when someone does take a growth opportunity.
Mhm.
That they have a 1-year transfer where their previous position
Mhm.
is held. Does that, the same situation for all of these transfers? No.
This one is because it's a transfer that becomes with their placement.
So some are district directed and some are opportunities.
Yeah,
So
They're
these were
district
district directed
directed.
because of funding.
So there isn't
There isn't.
the opportunity to go back.
unless there's a vacancy. And MESP for one is very fluid, tends to be pretty fluid, so it goes on the seniority within the classification. But they have, from what I've heard of principals, what I've heard from directors, those people who are transferred have joined in with a willingness and a smile on their face. Many of them, when I talked to them, said, yeah, look at it as this growth opportunity, I'm looking forward to it. Some of them said, I'm gonna do it. But what I appreciate is they've all been professional, and they're all, when I talk to them, they're all here to support the kids. Which has been really good to see. And Michelle, you asked, and I said it, the leave of absence. There have been some positions where we are unsure of funding. And so if they've taken that growth opportunity and then we are unsure of the funding for the next year, then we will allow them to take another leave of absence. If the funding is there, we'll go, okay, one more year. But for the most part, we've really tried to limit leave of absences to one or 2 years. Okay, and just the basic grade level, I'm gonna break down Irene Ryther. If you notice this, TK, kindergarten, first, second, third, there are no new teachers listed there. And so I created this presentation and then went back and was like, for Irene Ryther, this is unusual.
Mhm.
Irene Ryther, I've looked at previous and had three new grade level teachers in third. We have 2 partial leave replacement staff. In fourth and 2 in fifth. Now, what do I consider new? Some of these teachers are in different positions. They might be in a different grade band. But they were with us last year in some capacity. So this is, Tyler has, since his time here, I would bet Tyler and Irene Ryther has done the most hiring of any of our principals and probably most of our directors, just because of the nature of Irene Ryther. So I won't say he had a summer off, but he had much less hiring this year.
So can you give me an example of what a partial leave?
Like maternity leave.
Okay.
I'm gonna take maternity leave from October to January.
And these are all the MEA.
Yes, these are all just teachers. And what I don't include here is the TOSAs and the specialists. And so this is just, at TK, we have 2 classes. At kindergarten, we have 6 sections, 6 classrooms of kindergartners. So that's kind of how I broke that down.
So is like the second grade, are those smaller class sizes as opposed to the third grade?
There were more second grades, so without looking at the actual class size.
Yeah.
Because we had more first graders that were gonna go into second grade,
Yeah,
we planned for more
That was
teachers.
gonna be my question. So next year, you're gonna be like, hey, we're gonna need 6 third grade sections. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna,
And
And-
that's happened previously too, where
Yeah.
we had to add with the classes.
And Daniel has I'm gonna call it magic. It is a magical spreadsheet that has, I think he goes back five different metrics to determine what we budget for that third grade for next year. It's pretty impressive to look at. And if you ever need a lesson in spreadsheets, Daniel, it's good.
one of those guys at my work.
If I could just throw something out
Yeah.
there. So an example of that, he projected that we would have enough staffing or we would need enough staffing for 4 fourth grade classrooms. At about 28 students a class, which is high for elementary. And then we were tracking almost 31. Where we, to problem solve, thought we were gonna have to hire a 4th grade teacher. And between 3 weeks ago and a few days ago, we had the count. We're at about 27 for each of those schools. So we're not gonna have to hire the teacher, but in the past, we may see that trend in August and go, we need to hire that person. But if you do that in a tight budget year, you're committed. And if you discover, because what you don't know is you don't know how many are not gonna show up. These families will, they should. So we had a problem solving conversation today because they count day on Friday. I spent Monday talking with directors and trying to get a sense of where are our priorities, where are our needs.
And the accuracy this year from where Daniel budgeted and where we are, pretty impressive. At the middle school, we have one brand new staff member and she's a special education teacher. We had one transfer from the high school to the middle school. And then we had a math teacher who was taking a 0.5 leave. And so we hired a temporary or a leave replacement math teacher. So, and what middle school staff, I think back in my time here at Meridian, and the middle school staff was the most senior staff. And now I look at the August day when Jill and Todd were up here, and it's like a brand new staff. I would say a majority of it, and I have the math and I actually looked at it, but the amount of staff who have been hired in the past 3 years and 4 years, it's pretty impressive. And so they didn't lose any staff. We had one staff member retire. So the culture that these principals are building in their building is what's helping to keep the teachers. Meridian High School, again, combination of transfers and new hires. They were able to hire 3 new staff members. ELA social studies for the main program, and then fire science and open doors were hired. And we had one staff member transfer up from the middle school. And then they had 2 leave replacements at a 0.6 band. And I think we heard him the other night. I think
Yeah,
when
we did.
they were playing Bon Jovi. It sounded good. And then a 0.4 social studies, which we had to be creative with our staffing, and we were able to add a 0.4 social studies. So, and then MP3.
And I'm sure all of those teachers greatly appreciate the creativity to meet the accommodations that are needed.
We're working on it.
Yeah, they were great.
They are.
Some were disappointed, but some understand, but they all understand.
They all understand. Yeah. And then MP3, they had one staff member take a leave of absence, and so they hired one new staff member. So. Backwards. Okay, questions?
Very creative year.
It has been.
You did well.
It has been. It's
Crafty, yes, crafty.
yeah. It's really been a team effort. And sitting in those conversations and watching the creativity and watching the give and the take. And how the commitments play into those conversations. It's been challenging, but I feel like it's rewarding.
Right, I mean, as an employer, those are hard conversations. Those are emotionally and mentally exhausting.
And there are things we want to do that we just can't just
Right,
yet, right?
right.
So there are things we have to table, but no, we're heading there,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
One thing, if I could, I want to just, Kurt mentioned the program, but the fire science and the open doors. That's a nod for when we take over the skill center, so that we own those employees at Meridian as opposed to them being Mount Vernon staff. So, we're now looking at when there's a break. So currently, the skill center welding program that we host up here is a Mount Vernon employee program. It shifts, and it'll be a while because we're not gonna do welding in portable. And so we'll continue to have that program here until we get the building, the proper building built. So it'll be a while. So there wasn't urgency around that, but we're starting to think about and be strategic about where do we make some changes? Because Mount Vernon has a very different collective bargaining agreement that we do, being closer to Snohomish County, right? So you want to be cautious about making sure that all of your employees are similar on pay scale.
And confirmation, fire science and open doors, both those positions have been hired. And currently are under our payroll.
They will be in as of September, yes.
Okay, so that is
So
And are
fire
there-
science,
full. Or many other, or those,
so those are NCTA programs. So we just hired the employee and then the programs are run by NCTA. Fire science is full and wait, that's
good.
And then we knew that open doors would not right away, and so the effort is around making sure students know that that is a program that's viable and it's here now, as opposed to not having an option. It was by design, we knew, we have 4, I think, students now, and that'll continue to increase as we have interest. The other part of that is fire science is being
So even though
reimbursed.
open doors is not fully attended, we still allocated a full FTE to it instead of a partial?
Correct. So the state requirement a month is 2 hours of contact time. And if you remember, I was sharing that the program that CTA has is they require students to come every day and be connected to a skill. And so that's their full day. So 2.5 hours in direct instruction with open doors, and then 2.5 hours in fire science, welding, or maybe culinary down in Mount Vernon. But that's the programming that they're supposed to have. There are some students who are so close that we'll just have them do direct instruction, and then they get what they need to graduate and they're on their way.
And that's in our boardroom.
It's their board. Yeah, and they've reworked it. It's got all kinds of different things where all the clusters for CTE skills, and there are a bunch of pennants and different ways. I mean, it's you'll get a chance to see it at some point. We'll highlight it when we have students in there, but right now it's about making sure students know it's welcoming and it's an opportunity for them to recapture what they missed. But it's not ALE funding, it's re-engagement funding, and it has a lot more flexibility. So we do get to claim a full. So on the funding, Mount Vernon pays us for the salary of fire science teacher.
Okay.
And then for the open doors, and you'll be seeing an interlocal agreement coming from Mount Vernon. We retain 85%, and then Mount Vernon retains 15% of the enrollment.
But that's only this first year, right? And the
And then
second
we
year is
take
all-
over everything the second year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
Next up is the 2024-2025 strategic plan metrics and goals presented by Dr. James Everett.
So Mara and I are gonna do it together.
Oh, awesome.
You've been on deck a lot today.
I know.
What? But I don't do very well with that. So this is the next phase of the conversation we had at the retreat, talking about how do we move from goals to metrics and actually measure, instead of just how do we feel about it, but what are we actually looking at? So some of these are items that we have looked at history and made recommendations on the goals, and some of these are first time. So they're our best guess at what we think we're going to do, and then we'll be able to calibrate as we move into the next year. But first one's in belonging, and how do we want to do this?
Well, just go through them, so, excuse me, you'll recognize the goals are the goals that you discussed earlier in the year. We spent some time looking at our data and talking to our administrators and our directors to say, what tools do we have that are gonna give us some information that's gonna help us know if we're growing in this area. So with belonging and the goals around opportunities for students to build connections and committing to having difficult conversations. The indicators that we pulled were mostly from the CEE survey, but also the first indicator is around student participation in activities. So working with Bryant around how many kids are currently involved. And what we learned was we have very high percentage of our students who are currently involved in a club or a sport. And so our goal is to keep that up, right? Be great if more kids were involved, but right now like 80% is a pretty good goal. We looked at the student survey, the CE data that I think we've talked about a few times. There's a perception of a supportive learning environment. So those are questions that students are answering about, like, someone cares for me at school. I think that bullying and harassment is,
I have an adult that I.
yes,
that
all
cares
the,
about
so
me.
questions kind of about the environment there. And overall across the district, we had 59% of students had a positive percentage, and that was something that we want to identify to move up to 70% of students having a positive response.
Can I say something quick?
Please.
So we're not talking strategies here yet. This is the metrics, but when you're dealing with perception data, what we're talking about is changing or increasing people's perception of this particular attribute. So we realize it's a couple steps away from the actual action of having them feel like they belong. So we'll see how that goes, but I just want to point that out. It's not a direct reflection of a particular action. It's a culmination of actions.
And I believe Jen and I were chatting, and Jared and I are seeing these surveys, but other board members who don't actually have students in the district are not receiving them. Or some of the communications that we get to see as parents.
So I did offer them for you to look at the results of, and I can send them out. So we have them available. But when we have the kids take them, that's true. Or when it's, because it is students, parents and families, and then staff. Those are the three that take it. And so you are connected to the district in order to participate in that.
Cool. And then the other one we had was around leadership for belonging, and in that case, we were looking at the staff, students, and family surveys, and really the question there that was about difficult conversations and whether those were happening, and we were looking at just increasing for each of those 5% from a to a positive response of 5% there. Just about those.
Next one's communication. Oh, sorry. You were- So on each of these, we have 3 or 4. And so on communication, worked with Lisa Gilchrist on this and a few things based on her activities as well as the CEE survey. So family perception of collaboration and communication, and seeking to increase again about 5%. When we look at historically, anything beyond 5% really is an anomaly and it doesn't happen very often. So we stuck to something that we want to make it be achievable as well. So perception of students' awareness of their progress. So survey question, my teacher often tells me how I'm doing in their class. I think also will be things like keeping up on assessments and reporting back and skyward and that nature, so they understand where they're at. Again, increasing from 55 to 65%. So we see that we have a lot happening around instruction, happening with assessment, and now our teachers are working with our students. So we are looking for a bigger gain there. Installation of parent square. So this one is a real number. And so this is a report that Lisa is able to obtain. And we have a number of families who are using the Parent Square app. We also have families who are accessing information off the website that wouldn't be revealed on the app, but just in terms of what's favorable about the app is you get a lot of metrics off the app itself on who you're reaching and when you're reaching them. So 53 to 60%.
And the app does have the ability to come in home languages, correct?
Yes.
It translates.
Yeah. And the last one in family conferences, this will be real numbers as well, increasing. We saw a shift this year at the high school asking for 100% participation instead of just targeting certain families. So we're going to look for a goal of 90% across the district for family conferences.
So for support, we were looking at those metrics that were around the difference between achievement for different student groups for part of that. So we took a look at the Smart Balanced assessment for English and math. So that's third grade through 8th grade and then 10th graders. And wanted to look at that and the discrepancies we saw between the achievement of our students with disabilities and our students who are multilingual learners and our students who are not part of these populations. And right now there's a pretty big gap. And so our goal is to close that gap, 25%. So and for each of those, it's a different number of students that's moving. But we looked at this one quite a bit with our principals, and we looked at like historical data, and they actually looked at how many kids is that we're talking about, and they talked with their staff. Okay, we're talking about moving 5 students to get us 25% closer. And so we had quite a bit of back and forth determining this number with the principals really thinking about what they thought they were, wanted to look at this year.
I think that that's a difference over years past where we can actually have conversations with administrators and their staff to talk about where certain students are, to be able to think strategically about how to move those students. I don't think our staff had that knowledge previously, but the work around PLCs and the work that we're having happen with the technology and around incorporating data, has been really helpful.
The other one is academic growth. So there's student growth percentiles that OSPS have. We'll put out, this will be on our school report card. It's not publicly on our report card yet, but we do get preliminary data. So this is off this year's data. And we're looking at students can fall into low growth. And that's compared with other students in the state who had kind of a similar score on SBA. They can fall into typical growth. So they're growing as much as is typical for students with the score that they had. And then high growth. And right now we actually had quite a bit of movement. I can't remember where we were better this year, much fewer students in that low growth. But what we want to move is that in ELA, we had 20% of students in low growth. We want to change that to, so there's only 15%. So reduce that number. And then in math, we had 27%. We want to reduce that to 23. So fewer kids in low growth. Most kids are making typical or high growth. And then the last one was really about how our staff are feeling about their ability to monitor student learning. So kind of all of those things we've been talking around with assessments. How are we helping the staff get better, knowing where kids are?
Wellness, one that is an issue across the country is attendance. And big factor there is relevance and engagement. And so again, around the instruction, around how our teachers are working with standards, we are looking at an increase of 68% to 80% of attendance. And we certainly want higher, but we don't want to shoot for 90 and only fall short. So this is, as we look at the commitments, and you'll stop hearing us talk about strategic plan and hear us continue to call this commitments, because strategic plan has a lot of syllables in it. This is weird to say sometimes. And then the other one is, it really is what we're committed to. And so we want to see this be a living document that continues on. It's not just 6 years. This is the trajectory on how we're going to have successful students leave our system. We can always adjust and modify. But the idea here is we will get a much higher attendance rate. We're just not going to do it all at once, right?
And this is a very ambitious goal. I think this is probably the most ambitious one we have in here, but we did look at before COVID, what our attendance rates had been. And so they were higher than 80.
87.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, I think we know there are things that have been happening and like said across the country, but I think we can get back to where we were.
The next one, staff perception of their understanding of SEL instructional strategies. And so the question is a marker. I understand instructional strategies to support social emotional learning objectives. And so we're seeking to see that improve from 72 to 80%. A lot of that has to do with our MTSS tiers and how we're addressing individual student needs. And so some of that is social emotional strategies as well. So 72 to 80%. And the last one is the student perception of their own learning environment. And we want to see an increase from 59 to 65%.
And then this one around learning, here again, we're looking at assessment data. So overall student academic achievement. So here we're looking at all students, not just different groups. And so for SBA scores, for both ELA and math, and looking at increasing the number of students who are scoring at each level. So the number of students who were at a level 1, which is below standard, more of those students are at level 2. If they were at a level 2, more of them are at level 3. So we're not looking at necessarily an end goal of this many students. We're looking at how many students are in each category. So when we're moving toward proficiency there, because we have some students who are proficient, and we want to see them move to above standard. Students' future orientation, there are some questions on the CE survey about how students see themselves and how we're helping them to perceive what they want to do after they leave school, whether they have some idea about where they want to be after they graduate. So we're looking there at increasing kids that have a positive response to that those areas of questions from 73 to 78%. Dropout rates is something that we looked at as well. And those are, I'll talk about those a little bit. They're very complicated to figure out because they measure it a few different ways.
Well, we have four-year graduation cohorts, five-year graduation cohorts. We also have students who are didn't graduate, but are able to re-engage. And so when we talk about open doors, and when we look at just the dropout rate from last year, that's 13 students that didn't graduate. Doesn't mean that they left our system. Some did. Some are engaged with BTC. So what we've discovered is it's hard to know where our kids are when they're not in our system, as typically progressing students would be. So they engage with PTC, then it's hard to get an understanding of the progress that they're making. If they engage with Running Start and they don't finish, it's hard to know where they landed. And so, or if they leave us altogether, right? And if they haven't engaged in another system, then we technically still own them. So what we looked at is out of 13 students, and with the effort around open doors, we're gonna capture half of those students back.
And then the last indicator here is our ninth grade on track to graduate status. And we've talked about that one as well. That, especially with the ninth grade success team that Mr. Doffing and they've been working on for the last few years here, we have seen great growth in that. And so we just want to continue that growth. So right now, 83.9%, almost 84% of our ninth graders were on track to graduate. They had not failed in classes. And so our goal, and that's very high compared to historically. So they've already made great growth there, and so hoping to get that up to 89% of our freshmen are passing all of their classes.
It's high compared to the state too.
It is, yeah.
And we didn't, I mean, I think Adrian talked about it, but the metrics tie directly to the goals that we had discussed before. So I just want to reiterate that when we're looking at these, because we'll want to look at these goals and consider others next year. But we also want to keep track of these metrics because we have to have a historical aspect. Yeah.
So looking at the information you provided, we have attendance at 68%. Are you able to reduce that down further so you can identify by building? So you can see what the roadblocks are and be more strategic, as well as with the learning environment by building? Like, curious if you saw a decrease from your the middle school.
We know that now. We know our early and later grades are the ones that are struggling with attendance.
Okay.
Yeah, we know. So
Seniors and juniors.
yeah, so we'll develop strategies that help us, and some of these will be more prevalent in buildings where it's more prevalent.
No, exactly. That's what I was
Yeah.
hoping that
Yeah.
when with limited resources, you have to be very focused where you're putting your dollar and your manpower.
It also helps us focus our efforts, right? But
And these all, each building will have their own school improvement plan. They'll have their own goals with their own metrics moving toward these. They're related to these. They'll be in line with these, but they are going to be looking at specific strategies for their building with their data and their students as well that'll fit under this. So I think they usually will share those with you when they do their building reports. They'll kind of share the goal areas, the data that they're collecting as well. But we're working on them right now with the buildings kind of in line with these.
So we're having an update now on the commitments. When would a progress report come in or whatever?
Most of these measures are a year, though they would be next year around this time for most of them.
some of these are SBA happen in the spring, right? Some of these are the surveys happen in the spring. So attendance we can do common, right? We can do that more than once. So that's part of what we need to do is go through and look at, okay, when are we gonna read this back, right? But it works well to do it now because just starting the year, we'll have feedback from the spring, because some of these scores, for instance, of student growth, we have the preliminary, but it hasn't been made public yet. So it takes time to get that out. So to have that, now's the time to do the reporting on it, because we have to have the students conducted in the spring and then we have to wait for results. Sometimes we get the results right away. Good question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, on to old business, third review and approval procedure 2151P interscholastic activities. Any question, comments from board members? Student board advisory vote will vote.
Okay, I would vote to approve. Yeah, I say.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve 2151P.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, second review and approval policy and procedure 2402, English language arts master based credit. Any questions or comments from board members? All right, student advisory vote.
I would vote to approve. I second.
Awesome. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve policy and procedure 2402, English language arts master based credit.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Second review and approval policy and procedure 2403, math mastery based credit. Any questions or comments from board members? Student advisory?
I would vote to. I second.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy and procedure 2402, English language arts master.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Second review and approval policy and procedure 2404, science mastery based credit. Any questions? No? Student advisory vote?
I'll approve. I'll second that.
Can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy and procedure 2404, science mastery based credit.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second review and approval policy and procedure 2405, social studies mastery based credit. Any questions or comments from board members? Student advisory?
I would vote to approve. I'll second.
Perfect. Can I get a motion?
Move to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, second review and approval, policy 2413, equivalency credit opportunities. Any questions or comments from board members? Okay, advisory,
I would vote to approve. I'll second.
awesome. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 2413.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, on to new business. We have a donation listing, which is great.
Stay right here.
Right?
I get through these. So we have two donations that are geared at the Early Learning Center. One is $200,000 from the Whatcom Community Foundation, and that's actually an anonymous donor. And then the other one is from the Mel Baker Foundation, which is the 207. Oh, and $45. I didn't realize that. And so this is part of the effort to ensure that we can stand up an early learning center that will serve our birth to 5 and what is a child care and child early learning center desert in unincorporated Whatcom County without taking any local taxes. So we have funding from our federal government, we have funding from our state government, we have funding from our county government, and we have some local foundations that are contributing. I have it on good authority from the Whatcom Community Foundation that they are gonna also provide another 200,000, which I'll bring to you once I receive that from them. And I'm also happy to say that Whatcom County indicated in an email 2 days ago that they have $1 million that they want to provide an award letter for. So we're getting closer. Right now, we have $10.6 million secured. We're 1.4 away from that. The district office is 3 million, and we have a $2.1 million proviso from the state legislator. We already have that. We have access to those funds. We're just waiting for the federal funding that's connected through Mount Vernon, which has already been awarded. So things are moving pretty well. I'm super excited. I'll be writing some thank you letters and have them here for the next board meeting for everybody to sign, just to show gratitude. And then that'll be the meeting where you guys can approve this.
I was just gonna, I told James earlier that, or Dr. Everett, that when I saw this, I mean, I couldn't help but it just brought tears. To have somebody anonymously donate $200,000. I think that's so generous and kind. Just to bring us to our goal, so. And as well as Mount Baker Foundation, but I just think it's just wonderful. So.
Yeah. We've been super warm, supportive of
Yeah.
the goal.
Yeah, amazing.
Michelle?
You want to walk into that you?
No, it's just, I appreciate grant dollars, but I know it's rare that anything is ever free. So I just want to do some research too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that
I mean, what, the guiding principles behind all of these foundations, I would just like to do more research.
yeah,
And I do appreciate generosity, absolutely, and you don't walk away from that, but you also want to be aware of where dollars are coming from.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Next up is the Sunbelt LOT agreement. That's that correctly.
So this is the occupational therapist. When we go to a contract, it's because we posted for position and no one's picked it up. And we still have a student that we need to serve. So this is a finite contract for us to serve a student, to meet their needs. First viewing.
Did we approve something like this last year? We did. Okay.
It's a different amount,
Is it that?
but it's not uncommon for us to have that. We have a physical therapy arrangement as well that we shared with Lyndon.
Any questions on that? Okay. Superintendent's report, Dr. James Everett.
Well, that was fast. No Daniel, so
Oh, wow.
getting there. Okay. So really harkening back to a couple weeks ago when we started school, and it's just all the excitement about getting back in. And the first 3 days, the 26th to the 28th, when we don't have students, are learning improvement days. And it's really where our administrators are working with our staff. And then on Wednesday, the day before we start school, Laurel Church provides a breakfast for us, which is fantastic. It allows the whole district to come and break bread and be able to have a conversation and not be thinking about an agenda item that's coming up, and just it was really, really fantastic. And so we appreciate the partnership that Laurel Church provides us. And then we brought everyone back over to the to the auditorium, and then we did a kickoff when we talked about a lot of pieces that are tied to what's going on with the strategic plan and how we're going to actually apply that to the year. And one of those pieces, and I don't know if you've seen the book Unreasonable Hospitality, but is a book that references how you be unreasonable in the service you provide, so that you're looking at making sure you're not just meeting the needs of students, you're exceeding the needs for students and by connection, families as well. enjoy Thursday and Friday, just fun to get in the buildings and experience staff and students. Transportation seemed to go fine. People were smiling, just, it was a great start.
Yeah, I remember last year, the buses, the first couple days were extremely behind, and this year it was like, oh, they're here. So that was, yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, did a great job. We did have open houses and freshman orientation. We already have had elementary conferences. We're in the middle of high school and middle school conferences now. So really the premise is taking an opportunity to learn from families about their children instead of waiting until October and having a conference. And then I think for a lot of years with good intention, educators had meetings with parents with the idea that they were gonna give a report of how well they're doing. It's just not enough time. It's not enough time to be able to tell really well where a student is. This way we can leverage information from the people who are really our students' first teachers, to get a sense of what they've gone through, what do they have, not just passions for, but what are their aptitudes? What are they excited for? And what their goals are. So it's been a good shift. It happened after COVID. And so trying to look at the ways to leverage the relationships, think about how to make it so it benefits our students. Open doors at Meridian. So this is, we're starting the year with a half-day program. But you know, as enrollment increases, we have the capacity to make it a full day. Again, it's re-engagement. And it is guided by the NCTA leadership and how they've run their program. And so they're already starting to enroll students. And they had a couple students and their parents come by the open house they had last night. It's good. We do have the capital bond coming, so I've got all the pieces here, but I'll share some of the fact sheet. And so just some context. The school district has the ability to share facts, right? So that's what I'm doing right now, sharing facts. This is what we're seeking for our bond. It is a $75 million ask, and it is to improve excuse me, the middle school by replacing it. We do not have seismic structure support. And we have different pieces of accessibility, updating safety and making sure that it modernizes learning for the middle school. And also will create additional space at Irene Ryder by expanding the program from 6 through 8 to 5 to 8. The high school will see some improvements. The stadium has beams that are, some of them are rotting. And also the light poles and the lighting structure needs to be updating. The poles themselves are end of life. We're wanting to bring the music room out of the band room that's outside of the campus proper and bring it into the old cafeteria and remodel that to make it a viable music space. And then the last one will be to update the Performing Arts Center exterior, new roof, and then also the mortar work needs to be fixed. If you walk around it, you can see where it's come down. And then the one that didn't get on here is also a generator for the high school to maintain electrical support, both for heating and for communications. And then I want you also to know that at the middle school, well, I didn't put the date, September 24th at 6 p.m. we'll have Corey Plager from DA Davidson. He's our underwriter for the district, and Daniel and Robert, and I'm sure I'll have some to share as well to talk about these projects, and then also to talk about the funding and the impact it will have on individuals and depending on their house price and things of that nature. So these are images of the fact sheet that Lisa has produced. And so again, these just represent the information I just shared with you. So
these are fact sheets. So these are things as board members, as individuals in the community, we could share those.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. And really, as board members, you don't have the same restrictions. So for instance, while any school district employee is working, they can't promote it with the result of saying, you should vote for it.
Yeah.
But we can share information about it, right? As a regular citizen, you don't have working hours, right? And so there isn't a distinction for you. But probably to make sure you don't create confusing circumstances for people. You can say, here this is, but we have a committee, there's a community committee that's seeking to have support for the pond, and they're the ones that are doing that work, and anybody can be a part of that.
I'm on the committee,
Yep.
I'm a signing like person.
Yep.
I just found that out.
So I can just share your stuff on,
Yep.
Facebook, yeah,
Has the
so.
video been released? I did a video too.
I think so. Is
No.
that the one where Cratsick is?
There are a few of them. There are a few of them. The new one that has you has not.
Okay.
And so there is a page. I'm just gonna take a second to show you. Can you make this look and kind of get on the website, show where the fact sheet is? And so it'll be really easy to share this because I'm gonna show you where it's at.
Oh, let's see right here. Here's the web address. wednet.edu.pond.
Yeah.
Yes, but as you go to the website, it's really easy.
We just have little tabs at the top of our school district.
It's the first one on the left. So at the top there, Joe. And so here she's got. As you scroll down on the right hand side. The back sheet is in English and it's in Spanish and it's. Cool. And she's got some of the videos, so there's more here, but this is all factual. This is what we're seeking. Yeah. Even back to what we do with King architecture, so. The progression. The last piece is the North Cordata Neighborhood Association had a block party. And something that we haven't seen before is 90% of our administrators showed up on a Sunday at noon to be present. We also had Elvita Rosen and Alicia Roberts, who were there and had set up a table. You can see in the bottom right hand corner, but the picture that I'm there, I'm with Kate, and it was the president, and she said they typically have about 200 residents come through. It was hard to gauge because people were coming and going, but they had food and they had games and they had bouncy houses and all these different things. But what I enjoyed was standing back and seeing that our administrators were there just to be available for dialogue and connect. That's pretty important. So.
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, it's good. And then this hasn't changed since last time, so board meeting coming up in Coeur d'Alene and then AI conference and then another board meeting and then E3 Institute around early learning. That's my point.
Information from student board representatives.
It's the first football game on Friday and we're having a tailgate at 4:30, so. If any of you guys wanna come, it's gonna be a good community event, and it's like, it's district wide, it's not just MERIDIAN High School.
Is it like blackout, whiteout?
I think Extreme Spirit.
Extreme
Yeah.
spirit.
Is it in the courtyard? Where's it at?
Yeah, courtyard at the high school right before the game. Yeah, so.
Extreme spirit, okay.
Mhm.
You should wear Letterman's jackets.
Oh, please,
I'm joking, I'm joking.
please do, or your 1,000-pound club or whatever.
That's
you-
what that
Yes,
is,
right.
yeah, 1100, yeah.
So it's Wade.
Paint your face.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
I think it's also cheer night, like little.
It's
Yeah,
mini
it's
cheer.
cheer.
It's also mini cheer.
It's
Yeah,
going to
there's
be
gonna
big.
Like 90 elementary girls.
Yeah.
So it will be big. Oh, also, we put out applications
For the
for, yeah, student advisory at the middle school and the high school. So hopefully working on this. That's all.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for getting going.
How many people are on your student advisory board?
Last year, I think we had about 12. Yes, about 15. And then hopefully we'll have like the same amount, and then, yeah, expanding it to the middle and elementary school. Hopefully this year.
So is that, this is the first time for the middle school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you talk about the shift from, high school was district before, can you talk about the shift and what you're doing at the elementary and the middle?
So I know not last year, but the year before, Curtis and Mirage kind of took that position and created the high school advisory, and me and Morgan continued it, but as we were doing it, we realized it's really great, but it's also great to have like your own like school administration there. And so we tried to kind of shift it to be like district wide, and then at each, so then like each school would have its own advisory group with its own like vice principal or principal. And then twice or 3 times a year, we all come together and meet with Dr. Everett, and he's able to look at the whole district and really be have that look.
So we'll still have representatives from each
Yeah.
group, but yeah.
Was this your brainchild? Was this your?
Well, it was me and Morgan's this year, but me and Logan are.
No, that's really
trying
great.
to
Like,
do it this year.
way to do the grassroots effort. Like, that's awesome. That's good stuff.
Mhm.
Awesome. Any information from school board directors? Okay, we can sign official documents and adjourn. Thank you. Yeah, it's bummer to be in. Only to order myself. Yeah.
You guys have a busy week.
Everything's the same.